Welcome to Unit 3 of BS350. This is Business Analysis Techniques. So we're moving right along. We're into Unit 3. I wanted to take this time to give you a couple of reminders since we're moving along into the course. And the first thing I wanted to remind you about is the late policy. There is a late policy and it's posted in the course content area. And it's right above the Unit 1 content. So here's our late policy. And it basically says that work is due Sunday at 11:59. If you must submit something late, you can. Within 3 days, late work is accepted. So anything that's due Sunday by 11:59, you can submit as late as Wednesday by 11:59. And late assignments are at half credit. So you don't have to check with me first. If you must, you can submit a late assignment within 3 days after it's due, but it is going to be at half credit. So do everything you can to submit the assignments on time so that you can get full credit. And that brings me to the other thing I wanted to bring up, which is I suggest that after you submit an assignment, close your browser or later open a new browser and open that assignment again and just look at it again and make sure that is the assignment, the file that you wanted to submit. We've had a couple of mishaps this term already where people have accidentally submitted the wrong week's assignment or an assignment for a different class or accidentally submitted a blank file. And when that happens, unfortunately, I have to grade whatever was submitted. So if it's the wrong assignment, you're not going to receive any credit for it. Now, if you realize that this is the wrong assignment because you opened it up and you looked at it and you're like, oh, this is not the right assignment, and you can then reattach it. If it won't let you attach a second file, you can email me the corrected file and just say, hey, I attached the wrong one, grade this one. And as long as it's before Sunday at midnight, you're still fine. If, though, this happens and it is after Sunday at midnight, the corrected file will be late. It will be counted as a late assignment because based on when you sent it after the due date. The file you sent before the due date was the wrong file. So whenever the correct file comes in, it's going to be counted, either late or on time based on when you sent the correct file. So I hate to see people losing points because they just simply attached an empty file or the wrong assignment for a different class. So I really suggest that you just open up your assignments and look at it one more time before the due date Sunday at midnight to make sure you attached what you think you attached. Okay? So now that we have brought that up, let's look at Unit 3 assignments. In the Unit 3 assignment, we've got this Word document, and I'm going to first of all encourage you to duplicate this table into Excel. That'll make it easier for the calculations. Just go ahead and put this table into Excel, and that way it'll be easy for you to do your work. So as we go through and look at this, I'm going to give you some areas to focus on to get your correct formulas. So the first question asks you, what is the max and max decision? And the max and max decision is the optimistic decision, the best case scenario decision. And that information is found on page 72. And it also gives you tells you how to locate the most optimistic decision, which means you're basically going to pick the one with the best outcome under the best conditions. So part B of number 1 says, what's the max and min decision? The max and min decision is the pessimistic decision, the worst case scenario. So you would go to page 73 is where you're going to learn about the pessimistic decision and what that means and how you go about selecting an alternative that is the max and min decision. Okay? The equally likely decision is located on page 74 of your text, and it explains how you would calculate the equally likely decision. Basically, with the equally likely decision, what you're going to do is take an average for each scenario. So we have a small, medium, large, or very large size station. So we're going to take an average of all three of these numbers. Then you will average all three of these numbers, all of these numbers, and all of these numbers. So like I said, I would suggest you do this in Excel. So ideally here you'd have another column that'll be labeled equally likely decision. And here's where you will put your averages all the way down. And so then you will use those averages to determine your equally likely decision. So refer to page 74. But that's how I suggest you tackle that, is to put a column right in this area that averages each of these lines, and that will get you going on your equally likely decision. 1D says, what is the criterion of realism decision using an A value of 0.8? So that information is on page 73, is where you'll read about the criterion of realism decision. So this whole first problem is going to be on pages 72, 73, or 74, all of the responses, information that you need for the first problem. So to get the criterion of realism decision, there is a formula, and it's right there on page 73. It's going to allow you to take the weighted average of the 0.8 that's given here in our problem times the largest answer in a row. So for example, out of the small market, these numbers right here, to get the criterion of realism decision with a 0.8 value that's given in this problem, you would take the largest number in that row of small. And so, of course, the largest number there is 50,000, right? And you would multiply that times 0.8, and then add to that the minimum number in this row times 0.2. So let me go back over that. The criterion of realism is explained on page 73, but basically what you're going to do is take the largest number in a row times 0.8 times the criterion of realism factor given, which is 0.8, the largest number in the row times 0.8, and the smallest number in the row times 0.2, and add those two together. That gives you your criterion of realism. So again, you will probably, next to your equally likely column, you probably have another column here, another column right around here, that is your criterion of realism column. And so you'll have a criterion of realism answer for each size of station: small, medium, large, and very large. And so when you read page 73, it'll tell you how to select the correct answer of those criterion of realism calculations that you've made. Okay, so pages 72 through 74 is going to get you through problem 1. Now let's look at problem 2. On problem 2, and I know this is new information for most of us, this is a different type of problem, but once you read through the chapter plus see this video, put the chapter reading and combine that with this video, it'll all make sense for you. So the problem 2 here, you're going to make a calculation to get the EMV, which the EMV stands for expected monetary value, and you're going to find an explanation of that on page 76. And on page 76, it explains the formula to get the expected monetary value. And so you'll get an expected monetary value for each of these models. For the Sub 100, for the Oiler J, for the Texan, you'll have a column here that'll be the expected monetary value you'll calculate for each one. Okay? And so that's part A, is to calculate those expected monetary values using the information given. 2B tells you to calculate the expected value of perfect information and the maximum amount you should pay. You're going to find both of those on page 77. You're going to find those formulas. So both of the formulas you need for that, and you'll be able to take that information partially from the information in the chart here, and then the formula will tell you what to do with it. So page 77 to get through number 2. Number 3, part A says to using the utility curve, which is this chart here. Using this chart here, replace all of these dollar figures with utility values. So the utility values are these numbers that are along the line on the graph. Okay, so for example, this negative 100,000 utility value is 50. So you would replace this 100,000 with 50. And you will do that for all of the dollar values down here. Simply replace them with the appropriate utility number from the chart. So then on part B, you're going to find the expected utility for each of these models of equipment. To get the expected utility, you use the utility numbers you've entered in here, and you're going to go back to page 76 to the expected monetary value formula. You're going to use that same formula we used in problem 2 and apply it to this problem. And so we're just using utility values instead of dollar amounts, but it'll still give you the expected values for each one. Okay. So then on number 4, we've got a decision tree with some options regarding what kind of a shop to build. Now, there's a video in the additional resources area of Unit 3 on decision trees. I highly suggest you also review that video to go along with this. In addition to that, you're going to use the expected monetary value formula that is again on page 76. That formula also applies to problem 4. So you've got numerous options that you're being asked to compare, but look at this. You're just calculating EMV. This is what you've calculated in the last 2 problems. Problem 2 and 3, you calculated EMV. So that way you know you're using the same formula you've used on the last couple of problems. You're just going to apply it to this problem's information. And again, feel free to convert all of these problems into an Excel file, set up a table, have the type of shop going down the side, and favorable or unfavorable going across the top. Set it up similar to these tables in the other problems so you can let Excel do the calculations for you. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on what to kind of look for in the assignment, what pages your formulas are on, and which formulas to use. So after you've done the chapter reading, plus viewed this video and the decision tree video that's in the Unit 3 content area, then all of this will come together for you. I do have office hours from 8:30 to 10, Mondays and Tuesdays. And I'm always available by email. Some of you have emailed me already and found that I respond really quickly, usually within an hour or 2, but always within 24 hours you'll get a response. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Enjoy your week.